Ba'adoi ube'ad beiso ube'ad kol ke'al Yisrael. Something which gives a kapara to everyone. For him, for his house, for the whole Jewish nation, the whole Klal Yisrael. So something which gives a kapara to the whole Klal Yisrael, and the same thing is the Ktoires. But how do we know that also some things that everyone have a separate kapara? So that we learn from Bevoyoi Lechapel. So that comes to add also kapara which are separate kaparas. What exactly is the Ktoires giving a kapara for? The Ktoires is giving a kapara for Lashon Hara. Because Ktoires is something which is done bechashoy, done inside. He goes there by himself. He does it. So that gives a kapara also for something which is usually done bechashoy, which is Lashon Hara, that people usually say it bechashoy. Sometimes they don't say it bechashoy, but usually it's done bechashoy. People don't like to say bad things about other people when they hear it. Okay. The Gemara says that where do they have to not be at the time of the Aktorah? In the Matan Domim. So if it's a Aktorah in Matan Domim, which takes place in the Kodesh HaKodashim, so then they can't be in the Heichal. But at the time of the Aktorah, in the Zrikas Domim, which take place in the Heichal, so they also can't be at the space between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. And the Gemara says that how do we know that also the Matan Domim, which they do in the Heichal, you have to be Poiresh? Because we learn Kapara from Yom Kippur. Now the Gemara tried saying two things, but the Gemara stayed in a question, meaning we don't know. So we don't know. There's a Milas, which is in Maseches Kelim. The Mishnah in Maseches Kelim goes and says that there's different Kedushos. The Har HaBayis is more Kodesh than Yerushalayim, and the Chel from Har HaBayis, and the Ezras Noshim from the Chel, and the Ezras Yisrael from the Noshim, and then the Ezras Koyanim from Yisrael, and the Bein Ulam and HaMizbeach is more Kodesh than the rest of the Azorah, and then it goes the Heichal. So these milas, according to Rashi, all of them are deoraisa. According to the Tosfos Shoni, we're not talking about all of them. We're just talking about this specific milo of Ben Ulam and HaMizbeach. So the Gemara wanted to say that they're deoraisa because otherwise, what's the difference? Why they have to be poiresh only between the Ulam and the Mizbeach? Why don't they have to be poiresh from the whole Azara? The Gemara answers that there's no rayo, there's until between Ulam and Mizbeach, there's the Mizbeach HaChitzoin. So there's a clear cut that people won't pass. So therefore, there was no need to make the Gezerah to not be the whole Azara. Another thing the Gemara says is that must be that, meaning the Havamina of the Gemara understood that the Kedusha of the Ulam and the Kedusha of the Mizbeach must be the same Kedusha. Why? Because if the Heichal is already, okay, it's okay. Everyone knows where the Heichal is. The Heichal is one Kedusha, and then the Ulam is already one Gezerah that we don't allow him to be. So we wouldn't make another Gezerah between Ulam and the Mizbeach. So must be that the Ulam is part of the Heichal. The Gemara says, no, maybe the Ulam is part of the Kedusha ben Ulam and the Mizbeach, so therefore there's no two Gezerah. So these two things we didn't come out clear, whether it's the Oraisa and also whether the Kedusha of the Ulam is like the Heichal or like between Ulam and the Mizbeach. Every day the Kohen Gadol used to take, or the Kohen that used to come bring the machto, used to take with a silver machto. And the reason is because the Torah chas al mamonim shel Yisrael. And when you take gecholim, when you go in the fire, so the metal gets ruined. So we didn't want the gold to get ruined, so we use a machto of kesef. Okay. And today, the Kohen Gadol takes with a golden machto, and the reason is because of the chusha of the Kohen Gadol, so we make it easier for him. Now, there's three places that it says how much, it says three amounts, which are gecholim that will pour on the floor. Because he takes every day with the machta of the silver, he pours it into the machta of gold, and the machta of silver is bigger. So one place it says that a kav of gecholim falls on the floor. According to, so the Gemara understand that's obvious, that's chachamim. The chachamim say the machta of silver is 4, and the machta of gold is 3. So when you pour 4 into 3, so you get 1 on the floor. There's another brayso that says 2 kabim. So the Gemara says that's lichoiro not Rabbi Yossi either. Because according to Rabbi Yossi, it says, according to Rabbi Yossi, he says he takes it with Aseo, which is 6 kav, and he pours it into 3. So pouring it into 3 would leave on the floor 3. So why does it say 2? So either it can be Rabbi Yossi, and we're talking about Aseo Midboris, which is only 5 kav in Yerushalmiyos, so therefore it will leave 2 on the floor. Or it's the Shita of Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broiko, that said that he will take with 4, but he would pour it into 2. So therefore there would be 2 on the floor. Okay. Every day it was heavy. Today it was light. Because every day the walls were thick, and today they were thin. And every day it was short, and today it's long. So the Kohen Gadol can use his elbow or his hand, the top of his hand, to help him carry the machto. And every day it didn't have niashtik, and today it had niashtik. So what is this niashtik? So according to Rashi, it's a ring that makes noise when he carries, because there's a din of a nishma koile bevoyel hakodesh. So usually the Kohen Gadol, when he goes into the kodesh, he has his me'il, which makes noise when he walks in. Now he doesn't have the me'il, so he has this niashtik to make the noise. Okay, every day the gold was green. I think green means yellow, our color gold. The Gemara says, Rav Chisda says, there's 7 types of gold. There's a gold which is called gold, and then there's a gold which is good gold. So what is good gold? The Yerushalmi explains that when you put it into the oven to start dealing with it, it doesn't lose anything. That's good gold. And then there's the Hav Ofir and Zahav Mufaz that look like a diamond, shines like a diamond. There's Zahav Shachut, Zahav that is so that you can make strings out of it. It's so soft. Then there's Zahav Sagur, which when you sell it, all the stores close. It's such good gold, no one wants to go buy anywhere else. And then there's Zahav Parvaim, which we learned in the Mishnah, that it's a gold that looks, it's so red, like the blood of the ox. And then the Gemara will speak about it, continue with Hashem later, tomorrow. Okay. So that was the Gemara. So now we'll go to Avas Chesed. Chofetz Chaim says in Avas Chesed, we're still in the introduction. And he brings different places in the Torah that we see the chashivus of the midah of chesed. So he says another type of chesed that the Torah brings, that Avraham Avinu was davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save Sdoim and not kill them. And we see that Avraham Avinu went on and on to daven. We see over here how much a person needs to do good to other people, to daven for them, to be saving them from their tzara. There's the famous Maisa with the Chassam Sofer, that he came to his son in a dream. There was a Jew in a terrible matziv, and they were trying to do so much for him, and they weren't able. And then the Chassam Sofer went to sleep at night, and he didn't know. He was very tzibrochen, and then the Chassam Sofer came to him and said, "Why don't you do anything?" He says, "What else can I do? I did everything." He says, "Daven for him." So he told the Shamish to wake up the whole city, men, ladies, children, and they all davened for him the whole night. And then there was a miracle. I don't remember exactly what was the miracle, but the miracle happened, he was saved. So you see, daven for people. You see an ambulance going by, says Rav Avigdor Miller, daven for the person. Okay. Says daven stam for your neighbors. They should have good life, parnoso, health, shidduchim, everything. Daven for people. Okay, and even if they're not going in a good way, so we saw also in the Gemara and Brocha is daven for them to do tshuva. And also from the inyan of Afichas Doim, we see the inyan of Midas Chesed. Because the Novi says, we would think, what did Sdom do so bad? The Novi explains that they were go in Sivas Lechem, we had Ani Vevion Lo Yechziko. The Novi in Yechezkel says that they had so much and they didn't help poor people. And they wanted to make people not go through them, like Rabbi Yomi was Marich in the Yesod HaTshuva. And also the Torah says goes through the whole story how Lot brought the guest in, even though he didn't know their malachim. And also Vayita Esha Be'er Shova, and also in Pashas Chayei Sarah is full of Midas Chesed. First the Ishtadlus of Kvura and Hesped, which is Milus Chasodim. Then the Torah says the whole story with Rivka and Yitzchak and the Ikor, how Rivka was chosen to be the wife of Yitzchak, was through the Chesed. And in Shishi it says that Ishmael and Yitzchak and Ishmael buried Avram Avinu, and then it says, "Vayeh achrei Mois Avram, Hashem came to pay a shiva called Yitzchak." And Yaakov Avinu, the neder, he says, "I'm going to be meiser to you," and mistoma, what the meiser would go to, probably to tzedakah and chesed. Then there's the Kvurav Dvoiro. He goes on and on, saying, if you, there's many places, almost every parsha, you see, with Reuven and Yehuda, they were trying to save Yosef from getting killed. And Tamar didn't want, she was willing to get burnt, not to be Malbim Pnei Yehuda, which is also an union of chesed, not to cause someone else an embarrassment. So, yeah, there's a lot of chesed in the Torah. Looks like it's going to take another at least day or two, just until he'll say, and there's so many more, and he'll continue the pticha. Okay, so now Be'ezer Hashem the Chofetz Chaim. Okay, so today we'll start Be'ezrat Hashem subjective divrei ginai. So he says that we saw earlier that you can't say something bad about a person even if the person who's listening doesn't look at it as negative. But on the other hand, you can't say something which is not negative if the person who hears will look at it as negative. You're telling someone says, "Wow, I wish to beat someone wearing green. I hate green." And you say, "Wow, look at this guy. He's wearing green." And he goes beat him up. So there's nothing negative in wearing green. But if you get someone in trouble, so it's for sure lashon hara, even if he still looks at it as something bad. You can't say that someone wears, example, certain type of clothes if people, or at least the person who hears it, look at it as negative. Okay, another thing, he says, there's no problem for a person to say, "I don't like dry wine." Every person has a different flavor. You say, "I don't like," you could say, there's no problem saying. And it doesn't mean that dry wine is no good. There's a lot of people in the world that like it. But if you don't, so I would think to say that you could say, "I don't like the way this guy gives a shir. I don't like the way he speaks. Because it's my flavor. What's the problem?" But the truth is that is a problem, because usually when people say things like this, it sounds that the guy is not such a great cheer giver. So therefore, you can't say that. Even though it's something that has to do with flavor, you'd say, "Oh, that's just my flavor. So I didn't say anything bad about him." It's still a problem. Okay. So today, he continues to give an answer. If you remember, yesterday he brought in the Shmiras Haloshin, the Yitzhak tells a person, how long do you think you'll be able to continue? You're going to try keeping Shmiras Haloshin. How long do you think it's going to work? So he says, first thing, even if it's going to only be 2 days, so a person should tell the Yitzhak, let's say it's true. So because of that, I need to not do it. It's known that when a person would go, no matter who he is, even if he's a very wealthy person, and especially if he's a poor person, and he would pass by the ocean, and he would see that the ocean took out diamonds and all type of very expensive stones. So would the person say, what's the point collecting? How long will I be able to collect? Maybe only 1 day. 1 day I'll be able, maybe 2. Then I'll need to go home to eat, and then it's not going to be here anymore. So a person will not say that, because to say something that will last only for 1 or 2 days, that's something which is not so important, but something which is very expensive stones, which every moment that the person collects them is more than 100 days of working in something else. So no one would say, it's just going to last for a day, for a few hours. What's the point doing it? So he says over here, it's also the same thing by Shmiras Haloshin. The Goyen brings in his Igeres Arlim Nitrufu in the name of the Medrash. Then every moment, in a moment that a person is chois and piv, he gets the special schar in Olam Ha'emes, shen kol malach ubriya yochel l'shayr. That no one can, even fathom or imagine how great is the schar for every moment and moment that the person is zoiche for being chos and piv. So it's an amazing thing if you think about it. Let's say the person wanted to say the lashon hara. He say, you know what, I won't say it. And he fought with himself. And it took 5 minutes, and 5 minutes afterwards he said the lashon hara. But for these 5 minutes that he tried controlling himself, he got so much schar. He'll get punished for what he did, unless he'll do tshuva, of course. But it's even the fight is worth it. Even the fight is worth it. That's what he's saying. For every moment that a person is chos and piv, he wants to say something lashon hara, and he's chos and piv, he gets to this oira ganus that ein kol marach ubiryo yochel l'shayil. So he says, take a look at the medrash. It doesn't say a month. It doesn't say a week. Not a day, not even an hour. It says a rega. And that's what it says in the Pasuk and Mishlei, in Tevakshena Kakesef. A person needs to deal with his oilam haba the same way that he deals with looking for money and looking for matmoiniyos. And whatever you get is unbelievable. It's all a revach, and it's great. Okay, so now he continues. And he says, and that's even according to the Yetzer Hara, that says that you're going to learn Shmiras HaLashon, and it's going to only last for a few days. But if you'll think about it more, you'll see that the Yetzer Hara is lying as usual. The Yetzer Hara is not makpid on saying emes. He says, because it's tested in reality by people that tried, that if a person will try doing it and learn the halachas of Shmiras HaLashon and try to keep his mouth closed when he wants to say a juicy story about someone else, so as long that he will get used to it, it will be easier and easier. It's like riding a bicycle. In the beginning, it's very hard and you fall every second. But eventually, you just get used to it because a person will start feeling when he's saying something which is not right. Because he says in the beginning, when a person didn't get himself used to not saying lashon hara, so his mouth just talks and he doesn't even think. He doesn't think about the results that will happen from what he says. He doesn't think, what is he saying? Just quickly, whatever goes through the mind comes out through the mouth. And he says, but once a person gets himself used to thinking about what he's saying, it's going to make a tremendous change. And even if there will be a time that for some reason he's not going to be able to keep his tongue from saying bad things, or a person will find himself that a few times the Yetzer Hara won, even though, don't give up. Because as long that you're going to continue the war, so maybe you're going to lose some of the battles, but at the end you're going to win the war. In your whole life, do it. And that's what the Chazal tell us in Maseches Brachos. Lo ilom yargiz adam yetzer tov al yetzer hara. What does this mean, this Chazal in Brachos on Daf Hey? That you should always fight the Yetzer Hara, like we say. And if you fight, so first of all, every time you win, you gain. And eventually, Hashem will help you and you'll be zoichet to acquire this midah and get tremendous amount of schar in olam hazeh and in olam haba, like it says, Me'eshech chofetz chaim, ohev Yomi.